Hey everyone, welcome back to the Prepared Mind channel. It is the Friday free for all. We've got a special broadcast. We're going to take your questions, we're going to take your comments, we're going to get you on the screen, but it's really going to be a little different. I'm going to kind of bring back a taste of the old show, back from the teens, where I get on a bit of a topic and just stay on it. What I'd love is your feedback on these topics. And to start off with, I want to say the emperor has no clothes. If you're familiar with that expression, good. If you're not familiar with that expression, let me explain. The emperor has no clothes or the king has no clothes. Basically, they're naked. We see them for what they are. They're nothing at all, right? The government, its system, it is all a hollow sham, all of it. So I want to start with this, and we're going to follow this topic kind of through to the end. All wars are bankers' wars, and all wars are fought when bankers fail and they need a scapegoat, someone else to blame. They've created a system. They've destroyed everything. They have no clothes, but they can't take the fall. They can't be responsible. They can't be held accountable. They're going to blame someone else. They're going to crash and destroy the system. They'll go to war. Now, yeah, bankers' wars. Now, well, John, I thought you said emperors and kings. Well, yeah, emperors, kings, they would borrow money until they're broke and they can't pay it back. So then the banks demand, well, you're going to have to get it back some way, right? So they go to war, always. Now, bankers, money, gold, silver are in short supply right now. They're in short supply. Why is gold in short supply? Well, that is the big money. And silver also been money. Some argue even longer than gold. Gold and silver are in short supply. What's that mean? Well, it means they're being bought up. Now, gold is the banker's money. Silver is the people's money, and it's also the technological money. Without silver, there are no supercomputers. There are no nuclear power plants. There are no television, smartphones, anything that is high tech, including war, requires silver, and they're all being gobbled up. Now, in a world with endless things to buy, endless things to invest in, how is it that all of a sudden there's no or very limited, and it's getting skinnier and thinner and smaller by the minute, supply of gold and silver to buy? The prices are going up. That's the evidence, right? So what do the banks want this for? Don't they have all the money in the world? Well, the thing that normal people call money is actually currency. It's just paper. It's worth exactly what it's printed on, paper. But the belief system is it has value. But that belief is going down, and you've noticed it because it's called inflation. When your dollar that you work so hard for buys less and less and less until it's flat on its back, little crosses on its eyes, it's dead. So the world is switching. The world is switching. When Trump was first running for office just 2 years ago, it started again, his campaign. He was like, no one's going to leave the dollar. The dollar is the world reserve currency. If you leave the dollar behind and don't buy the dollar, then you're going to be sanctioned and in trouble, and no one's going to like you, and we're going to hate you. And the world's like, too fucking late, right? The United States government already confiscated Russia's dollars. So the rest of the world's like, hey, we don't want that shit. And so the whole world has been switching over to a new system, a commodities-backed currency. And I've heard about this from different experts for at least 6 years, that the world is going to switch. Commodities are going to come back. Commodities means more than just gold and silver. Things of value, raw materials, processed materials, manufactured materials are going to have the value, right? Now, this world, all the world banks, all the nations switching back to a currency, a medium of exchange, like a dollar or a yuan or a ruble or a pound, right? But it has to be backed by something. This is actually not a new idea. Now, when they went to the Bretton Woods system, the US dollar, world reserve currency backed by gold, that was called the Bretton Woods Agreement from the 1940s, the other idea they had was to have your currency system backed by gold. So your currency had real value. Well, that idea did go by the wayside, but it's being dragged back up. Why? Well, because the United States government and the system, the emperor, failed. And Trump's threats failed because every country is leaving the dollar. Now, so we've got this East versus West, fiat, SWIFT, US dollars versus the BRICS, gold-backed exchange, right? In other words, if you're a country and you owe this country $20 billion, trade deficit, got to pay them. You have to pay in gold, right? So we have nations aligning against other, with nations and against other things, right? The SWIFT system is the US, European, Western system, right? It's played out. And the Brazil, Russia, India, China, the BRICS, this is all lined up, and they've agreed to a 40% gold-backed trade settlement system. And their dollar unit is going to just be called unit. Pretty original, huh? Well, this is where we're at right now. The switch is happening. The emperor has no clothes. Everyone's looking around going, what do we do? Banks and nations, central banks and wealthy are buying gold. Little people like us, well, if you're ahead of the curve, you're buying things of value, right? That would be a silver coin there, or a silver round, if you will. Nations go to war over money, folks. Or more precisely, I think they go to war over money failures. And if they can't agree on a payment system, we will have war everywhere. Now, like I said, if a nation goes broke, they don't want to take responsibility. They go to war with another nation. And right now, we don't have, a little bit of Europe or some Asian empirical system. It's the entire planet. And if they can't figure this out, if they can't come to an agreement on how to settle debt, how to pay for things, because it is an entirely planetary system for raw materials, resources, energy, which is oil and uranium, natural gas. If they can't agree with that, we will have war everywhere. World War III, whether it's nuclear or not, whether it's strictly AI war, computer war. Well, it's all currency wars. It's all about money. Money is a measure of wealth and human labor, right? And you can exchange it, right? This is representative of, currently almost $60 in the United States of America. $1 used to be, 1 ounce of silver. Now 1 ounce of silver is almost $60. In fact, it came this close. 10 cents. We were a dime away from $60 today in the trading. The money's failing. Nations are going to have to figure out how to do this. The emperor has no clothes. They need to come up with a new system or we're going to war. Now, a big question at this point is China, Russia, India, and several dozen, the not West, the not Europe, and not North America. Those nations now have a system that they can use that has eliminated the US dollar. The banks, right, the European Central Bank, the Federal Reserve Bank, and all of their associated little central banks, they no longer have a monopoly control over international trade, which means they're not going to be able to fleece the rest of the planet. They're going to have to give up their fucking monopoly. The question is, will the Western banking cartel, will they play fair? Will they want a fair trade settlement system and give up their fiat monopoly control, the ability to print as many dollars as they want and just throw it at the world and get their goods, right? Or will we have an excuse created for them to go to war? That's what do they want? They want fair system, Or do they want to have World War III? Whatever the excuse is, though, if they decide that, yeah, they want to go to war, they'll make up any reason they want. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. They could blame Islam. They could blame Israel. They could blame Ukraine. They could blame Russia. They could blame a comet. They could blame aliens. They could blame anything they want. It does not matter. Whatever the excuse is, right? It is a manufactured crisis, a false flag. And it'll be revealed in whatever happens, whether it's a military move or a cyber attack, banking collapse. We don't know. What we do know is we get SHTF. And you and I, all of us people, we get the pain. That's what always happens when they fuck up at the top, when the banks and the kings all screw everything up. When they get mad and they don't want to share, they want to be greedy, they want to kill, right? They create a problem, and their solution is to go to war. We get SHTF, and we, the little people, get to suffer. Now, if the bankers do not go to war, our economic, financial, and monetary systems will all get modified, and it's going to get reset. And our standard of living and world will change dramatically. That's if the bankers don't go to war. But guess who's going to suffer still anyways? That's right, you and I. They did this back in the 1930s. The bank and the government says, no more gold for the people. Most people today don't realize they outlawed private ownership and use and trade of gold, except for jewelry making. Now, why is that important? Well, what they did is they told people, turn in your gold and we'll give you the value of the gold and a little bonus to make you feel good. And then when they got as much gold as the people were willing to give up, because not everybody turned their gold in, folks, only about 10% did. But everyone else had, well, gold, and it was contraband. But still, the government turned around and said, okay, that's about it. We're going to double the price of gold. Right? They revalued it. It was an economic, a monetary reset. All of a sudden, your money was worth 60% less. Or was it 40%? Doesn't matter. Right? If we go to a new financial system, why do you think they're talking about CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, or stable coins? Because that sounds very stable. You know, why do they want to give us universal basic income? Because they know they're going to disrupt the financial, economic, and monetary systems to a massive degree. This is the Great Reset. They didn't want to tell us about it, but things typically leak out and slip out, or they cause it to when they're prepared, so that they can start conditioning us, our minds, to become, well, okay, maybe even sympathetic to what they're having to do. But remember, the emperor, the government, and the banks are the ones who caused this. They fucked it all up. They've raped the system. And there's nothing left for them to get, because the rest of the world is like, we don't want your dollars. We don't want your bullshit. We don't want your bonds. We're done with you. We're going to go to a gold-backed system, the very system that you rejected so you could have this fiat system and fuck everyone over. So I'm going to just kind of time out right here. Why do you think all of our congressmen and women are fucking screwing everyone over on the market? Allowing corporations to screw us over? Allowing the banks to fuck us over with 25, 30, 40% interest rates? That's literally criminal. Literally. Why do you think they're allowing all these fucking people to send money offshore and launder money and extort money? Why do you think they're allowing it? Because they're all interested. They know it's going to change, and they're stealing everything they can, right? They know the store is going to close and there's no security, because they are the security, and they're stealing everything they can. This happens every time a regime falls. Just like Zelensky has been stealing billions, and the system's falling, and they're trying to hide. They're scattering like fucking cockroaches. It happened when Ukraine went to war. All of those Ukrainians that had American money that was being laundered, they ran out. They got caught in other countries with suitcases, literally suitcases full of euros and dollars. And now that they're losing the war, it's happening again. They're trying to flee with the money they have. Every single time, these cockroaches screw up the system, right? And here we are. So if the bankers don't go to war, we're going to get an economic monetary reset. We're going to get a new money. If you've got $100,000 in the bank, the purchasing power of that $100, let's just call it an F-350 diesel truck. That's $100,000. If you've got that much money in the bank, enough to buy an F-350 diesel pickup truck, when they get done with their great reset, their economic and financial and monetary reset, do you think your $100,000 that's in the bank is still going to be 100? Do you think it's going to still buy an F-350 diesel? Or do you think you're going to end up getting a Volkswagen diesel pickup that couldn't haul and get itself out of the fucking way? Right? Yeah, they call it a haircut. You're going to get a haircut, right? Now, that's if we don't go to war, we're going to have economic turmoil. If we don't go to war, folks, our preps, our prepping supplies, food, water, shelter, clothing, medicine, means of self-defense, it is going to be required by everybody to have it. If you're not a prepper and a patriot, you won't have it. It's going to be required for localized SHTF hot spots because they're going to jack the system up. And systemic infrastructure failures and logistical issues are going to cause problems on getting food, getting water, getting fuels, getting electricity, whatever we need to live. There's going to be probably places all over the country that are interrupted. There's going to be outrage and hatred. Look at how bad it got in just a few days with people saying, sorry, people, you're not going to get any more free government money. You're going to have to live within your means. Right? We got threats that they're going to rob stores, and they did. That they're going to loot stores, and they did. We even had people swearing up and down that they're going to eat other humans, that they're going to become cannibals. That was from a system that really wasn't destroyed, really didn't go anywhere. They just had to stop spending all of their excess welfare money, right, on things that they didn't necessarily need, and they had to focus that money on buying food. They weren't really starving. You saw all those fat fucking pigs, those bitches. Yeah, they had money, right? If we don't go to war, your preps are going to be more valuable, and you're going to need them. That's if we don't go to war. You could have SHTF for, I don't know, 2-3 days. It could be on and off again, 2 days on, 3 days off, 3 days on, 1 day off. It could be straight for a couple, who knows? That's if we don't go to war. If we do go to war, if the bankers and the governments, the emperor who has no clothes, he's naked and we all see it and everyone wakes up, right? They're going to want to go to war, right? To fight and blame someone else. If that happens, look, if there's no war and you need preps, if we do go to war, serious World War III shit, you're going to need a shitload, a boatload of preparations, a lot of food, be able to do water all by yourself for months at a time, right? You're going to need good shelter, good clothing, right? The worst case scenario shit. Why? Because there's going to be international trade disruptions if we have world war. There's going to be international shortages of everything, right? Supplies, that covers food, that covers chemicals, that covers energy, oil. That's everything international if we go to war. It can be just completely upset. Oh, we could go 2-3 weeks with, oh, look at that. They're bombing each other over there. That's fine. Chickens come home to roost really quick. If we go to war, we could have a potential coup d'etat in Washington, D.C. If one political party doesn't like what's going on and they can get enough of the military, they could have a military coup. We could end up with military fights in D.C. trying to gain control of the country so that when it's all over, they're the new emperor. We could end up with a civil war situation where states go, you know what? We're fucking done with your bullshit. We want a capital where the people have access and the people are controlling it, and we're not being influenced and taken over and screwed over and impoverished by foreign nations and foreign banks. Right? We could end up with that. That's at the national level. We could have also localized rebellions. We could have partisan conflict all over the country for different reasons. It could be Muslim versus Christian. It could be Antifa versus Republicans. There's any number of things that could just cause people to lose their shit, and they're just fighting locally. And yeah, there's not going to be a whole lot of food deliveries into those areas, right? Infrastructure could break down. Banking, internet down, electricity down, water down for long periods of time. Logistical shortages. How do you get what you need when you can't count the highway being open more than 2 miles in front of you? But no matter why the war, no matter whether it's global or local SHTF, whether they give us a new currency that works or one that sputters, no matter what, this all leads back to the money problem, right? When you have a lot of money as a nation, as a people, you're comfortable. You can buy what you need. You can get the things you like. You're okay, right? Right now, we're all fat and sassy. We're all fat and sassy. Got full bellies. We're going to watch some TV. Going to hang out with the kids and the family, Christmas time. Got no worries. Got no problems. Everyone's happy. No reason to fight. There's no reason for civil war. No reason for yelling. Got lots of money in the bank. Hey, I got credit cards. Everything's cool. That's what you think, and that can change like that, right? No matter why the war, this all goes back to money. It all goes back to gold being money and silver being money. There's a shortage of it because it's all being bought up by people with tons of wealth. Now, I've heard that people like me and you, if you want to sell your silver, they don't want to give you what they're going to charge you for it. In fact, they want to pay you less than what it's worth on the market. Right? They don't want us to have it, right? But it's and if you try selling it, they're going to screw you for it right now. Once again, it is fuck everyone else, and they're looking out for themselves. It's a giant mess. Being prepared and understanding is really important, folks. It's really, really important. Now, one of our biggest, I'm going to call it a commodity. One of America, the United States of America's biggest commodities is free speech. That enables us to talk, to wheel and deal, to make deals. It allows us to express ourselves. It allows the world to balance itself because we can argue, debate, share ideas. But right now, there's a huge censorship push, right? Silencing people because they don't want us to talk about the emperor having no clothes. They want to keep us quiet. They don't like our opinions. They want to tell us what our opinion is. They don't want to hear it. There's groups that want to censor us. Nay, no. Silence us. They want to silence Americans for speaking our facts, for speaking the truths, right? And this is a global issue. In fact, Secretary of State Marco Rubio basically told England and the UK and all of Europe, in fact, basically go fuck yourselves. You're not going to fine Americans and American corporations and threaten them with arrest for speaking what and saying what we want. But they're actually doing that. So the United States is also considering this, passing a law that allows us in our courts, in our country, to sue them and then force them to pay us money for violating our rights. Do you think any of that will fly? Of course not. If England wants to tell me to shut up, they can fuck off. Right? They sue me, you're going to come and get me? If I sue them, can I get their money? No. But again, it comes down to, are we going to fight about this? Or are we going to recognize each other's sovereignty and play nice? Well, they don't want that. They want to silence everyone. Right? Those that want to silence folks are evil beyond compare. Look at what they're wanting to silence us over. Genocide, right? Mass murder, massive theft, massive fraud, medical poisoning on a global scale, political extortion, starving of entire populations, all manner of evil. And they don't want you to talk about it. They don't want you to see it, right? See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. Isn't that funny? Now, they are nation states and they are corporate powers and they want to shut us down. Well, what I've got to say is sorry, assholes over at the World Economic Forum, here at the Anti-Defamation League or the Southern Poverty Law Center, fuck off. European Union, you can go to hell. Israel, the UK, and all the others, wherever you lurk, we're done as Americans with the intimidation, the threats, and tolerating your bullshit. We're also being a little bit sick and tired of foreigners coming to this country and telling us we have to assimilate with them. We have to accept them and their rules and lives and their culture. Right? This is America. We are, by our nature, only supposed to answer to ourselves as free people. Having liberated ourselves from tyrants since 1776. And right now, as far as I know, we, the people, have no intention of abandoning our souls and our God-given rights to these sadistic, evil, satanic pieces of shit, whether they're in a church or a synagogue or a mosque. No. Whether they're in a palace or a parliament, too bad. And that free speech, my friends, is just the First Amendment. We got many more to defend, and they need to be defended. You know, signed sincerely, John and all red-blooded Americans. We are on the brink. And I know this is the Christmas season, and they count on us. They count on all of us to be nice and to forgive and allow them to do what they want. They want us to be tolerant, and they've been pushing that at us, but haven't you woken up to that yet? How we have to be tolerant, but they don't. How we have to be silent, but they can yell in our faces. Right? We have to be generous, and they're stingy as fuck. We have to give, and they only receive. Whether we're talking about a group or a nation or whatever. Right? They're trying to destroy everything. We're going to go into this great reset. It has everything to do with money, wealth, power, and control. And they can maintain that as long as they're giving you a little bit of money that they can take away with a threat. Or they can scare you into performing and behaving the way they want. And while they're doing all of this, folks, we have decades now of them trying to destroy America from the inside. We are now full, this country, of domestic enemies that anyone who is an American that has served or taken an oath knows that you've sworn to defend this nation and the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Now, when I was a young man, this concept of a domestic enemy seemed strange. What do you mean, domestic enemies? We're all Americans. Haha. Funny that when they wrote these oaths, swearing allegiance. An oath is swearing allegiance, tying yourself to a country, a movement, a belief system. That they knew then that needed to include domestic enemies as well as foreign. But they've been here for decades. Communists, Satanists. By Satanist, I mean anyone, political, religious, any group that is evil in its nature, right? They're bad. Absolutely horrifyingly bad people. So what I did, though, is while thinking about this and going over it today, I ran into a speech that a man named Charleston White gave, and I found the transcript for it. It's a speech about the destruction of America and about the destruction of men. And what I want to do is I want to read it because I think it's very powerful, and it ties directly with America, what we believe, what we stand for, why we wanted freedom and freedom of speech, freedom to protect ourselves and one another, why we're different than most of the rest of the world. While our very close brothers in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and England, right, they're very similar in law and concept and culture, along with other nations in Europe that also came over here, like the Scandinavians, the Germans, and many other European nations, Italians, lots of them here, right? But that's all. They've been trying to strip us of who we are. And in specific, this isn't sexist, but specifically, they've tried stripping men and destroying us of our importance in this culture. right? So you've got men here in our purpose and women here in their purpose. And they have stripped the men as far as they can of our purpose and the point of existence. And they just said, it's all women. You got women, are awesome. What have they been doing to you women lately? Transgenders are more important. They've been beating down women also. We all have our points. We all have our purpose. We all have our missions, but they needed to destroy men so they can destroy America. And I think we all agree that liberal white women are the most hate-filled, self-hating, self-righteous dumbasses. So let me get to Charleston White, who happens to be a black man, right? And in the video, I've got the transcript of what he was talking about. I want you to read this or listen to this. And if you will, think about how everything that he's talking about, everything that he said, is not just him as one man, but all men. Not just one man or all men, but how about the American families? How about the American way of life? I think you're going to enjoy this, right? Because it could also apply to a single mom. It can apply to a city or a state. It certainly applies to our culture. The destruction they wanted for America could not happen unless they did this to us. They demean us, they degrade us, they destroy us so they can conquer us. And they can give us their next system, this great reset, without any interference from us. They want us to surrender. But when you get done hearing this, I hope it means as much to you as it did to me. Because the more I read, the more it actually empowered me by understanding what he's talking about. It's not for the faint-hearted, okay? It just isn't. So this is what he said. A man can give everything he has, his strength, his youth, his peace, his labor, his sanity, and he will stay invisible until the day he dies. As long as he's perfect, nobody sees him. The bills get paid, nobody sees him. The house stays standing, nobody sees him. He keeps danger off the family, nobody sees him. He wakes up exhausted and still gives more, nobody sees him. He becomes visible only when something goes wrong. That's the truth men live with, and it's the truth nobody wants to confront because it exposes the spiritual rot in this culture. And here's the hard part. This wasn't always the way. Families used to honor men. Communities used to respect men. Faith used to center men. A man's sacrifice meant something. Democrats shattered that world. They built a culture where the man is disposable, replaceable, irrelevant. They taught women they don't need men. They taught children to distrust men. They taught courts to punish men. They taught society to ignore men until they fail. They turned the black man, actually all men and women, but anyways, this was written originally by a black man. He says they turned the black man into a workhorse with no gratitude and no covering. A ghost in his own house. That's how a man can die after a lifetime of sacrifice. And nobody even knows his name. But here's the part that shakes the soul. God sees him. The Almighty knows the weight he carries. He knows every night the man went to sleep wondering if he still mattered. He knows every moment that man swallowed his own pain to hold up the people he loves. Men aren't asking to be worshiped. They're asking to be seen. If men are privileged, then why does the world only notice them when they break? Anyways, I felt that was really a philosophical look. Right now, the country's falling apart. It's breaking. And now everyone's noticing. And they're like, where are the men? Why isn't this fixed? Where are the good people? Where are the smart people? Why isn't it fixed? because they've already smashed what's important: our culture, our families, our educations, our military. They've done everything they can to absolutely destroy us as men, as women, as individuals, as a culture, as communities. Toast, right? They've invited in millions under Biden. We got at least 20 million illegals that are here. And that was after we had millions and millions and millions brought in by Obama and George W. Bush and the Clintons, and not to mention all the other illegals that snuck in on their own when they weren't supposed to, back when even Democrats were saying, illegals get out. Right? This is what they need. They need to replace us, me and you, us, that produce. And they want us conquered, afraid to talk, afraid to succeed. No one noticed anyway, so why bother? Right? But once the system's broke, now everyone wants answers. Now everyone wants it fixed. And what does government do? They give us the solution, the Hegelian dialect, aka problem, reaction, solution. They created a fucking problem. They're getting the reaction, but they want to be the ones that offer us all the solution. They want us all to accept their story. They want us all to gravitate towards them and worship them. The government, the bank, these corporations. You'll own nothing and you'll like it, we promise. They're going to take our property, real property, our homes and houses, make us pay them to live in them. Do they not? You want to transport, move, motivate, locomotive, right? Go somewhere. Give us your money. The state owns your car. They'll come tow it the fuck away if you don't pay your taxes. Everything is set up to strip us of our freedom, our fucking manhood. And I mean that as a collective group, our dignity, our very souls. This is what they're after. This is what they want. And this is what they think they're going to win. And right now, as it's getting to the point where people are standing up and going, where are the men? Where are the warriors? How do we fix this? They're telling you to shut the fuck up. Silence, peasant. Silence. I kill you. Silence. Right? The threat. And you point to who's responsible. Washington, D.C., the banks, the UK, Israel, Europe, the World Economic Forum. You're not allowed to talk. You cannot criticize those who are ruling over you. You can't notice the emperor has no clothes. They want to take that from us. We still have it, though, that First Amendment. They're fucking pissed about it. For decades, they tried taking our Second Amendment, which is our ability to physically resist them with force, and deadly force at that. They couldn't win it. They basically kind of gave up on the Second Amendment. They're going to go after the First now? That should be an even bigger fight. Someone tells you to shut up, you should flip them off and say, go fuck yourself. I'll say what I want. Because this is America and it's freedom. I don't answer to you. I only answer to me and the highest power. And they don't like that, folks. They want us to worship the emperor and his Potemkin city. You're probably wondering if I was going to get to the Potemkin city, huh, man? Right? The Potemkin city. What is it? Well, it's way over there and you can barely see it. It's shiny. It's glittery. It's pretty buildings and clean streets and a promise of all good things. Right? That's what they're setting up, a Potemkin city. It's fake. Right? Now, the history is there was a king and a queen. Their kingdom was ruined. But they kept being told by their administrators, people who ran the government bureaucracies, the deep state, if you will, under a king and a queen. They kept saying, oh, the country's great. The people love you. Everyone's doing great. Your taxes, how you're taking all their money, it's not hurting anything. They're doing great. So they said, as king and queen, well, show us. We want to go out into the country and see it. So they built these villages, just a wall, painted them all nice, all these buildings. But it was just a facade. It was fake. It was a bunch of building fronts. There's no real stores. And they put people in clean clothes and had them walk back and forth. And the king and the queen, they kept them at a distance. They kept them at a distance so they could see them. They could see it. Shiny, clean buildings, happy people. They could kind of faintly hear music playing, instruments and children laughing. And they thought, yeah, this system we have is great. Everyone's happy. Things are fine, right? That's what they're trying to tell you. If we do everything they say, look in that distance. You can see it, can't you? You've heard about all the people doing really great. They're rich. They've got great cars, beautiful houses. There's great cities. Just the one you live in is shit, right? So then you move over there and it's shit over there. And you look back, you're like, see, over there's the good one. Potemkin City is what those are called. And they take the king and queen by several of them. Then they take them back to the palace and can you fucking everyone over, right? Until the kingdom was broken. And the emperor truly had no more money to confiscate or gold or silver. And they're broke. They have no clothes. This is where they're leading us, folks. They've broken all the systems. They've stolen all the wealth. They're buying all the goods, all the gold, all the silver. There's not much left. They keep telling us everything is great. Look over there. But it's all a facade. While we've been invaded with domestic enemies, while they've destroyed our culture, destroyed the strength, the masculinity, they destroyed the feminine and nurturing side of our culture and our humanity. They've gotten really freaking close. And this is why everyone grabbed onto the Trump dream. Oh, please, you can fix all this. Can't you see it? Can't you, Mr. Trump, see everything that's wrong? And he's standing up there screaming, make America great. Oh, yeah, we're going to do this and that. Yet where are we? We're still heading down that same dangerous, awful path of destruction. We're hearing the right words. See that city over there? They're fixing everything. But you get closer and it looks like shit. Go to Minneapolis. Go to Oakland. Go to these big cities and look around. It's shit. Wow. Merry Christmas, everyone. Anyways, it is Friday. It's the special broadcast, and that basically concludes what I wanted to discuss with you guys. It took about 45 minutes to get there. I would like to have your reaction, your thoughts. You can put them in the comments. Uman will put them up on the screen. I don't know what you were expecting. Probably weren't expecting all of that. But I would like to address some of these topics. And I know I covered a lot. 45 minutes is a long time to monologue through a lot of this. But it's what I see. I know SHTF is coming. It's just how bad is it? I know the Great Reset is coming. It's just how bad is it going to be? And are we going to get an American republic, a constitutional republic with this reset? Or are we going to get something completely foreign while we deal with these people that are completely foreign to our culture and our laws and everything else? We have massive amounts of problems. Let's do it. Mr. Uman, let's see what we have out there. I have no idea. Haven't looked. I've been busy thinking and talking. And Redneck Roughneck comes in, and I want to thank you, sir. Merry Christmas to you and all. He says BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those were the founding nations of BRICS, but it's now well over 24 countries with many other affiliated countries. It is an economic and trade union international. So BRICS just unrolled a gold-backed money. That's the unit. How will this affect the dollar and the bankers' digital coins? Now, I have to say, anything I say is not investment advice. I'm not a scholarly economist. I manage a small family, shall we say, office portfolio, hedge fund, whatever the fuck you want to call it. So I immerse myself in it a lot, and I want to protect family wealth. So that's about the extent of my professional opinions on this, but I'll give you my opinions, and they're just my opinions. So how will this affect the dollar and the banker's digital coin? Well, seeing that this was coming, seeing they could stop it, Trump and the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, and all of their people, not the Federal Reserve, by the way. This is monetary policy, and then there's fiscal policy, how the government spends money and tries managing the economy, and the Federal Reserve tries managing the money system and by the monetary system, money, and by doing that, affecting the economy. So they're supposed to keep unemployment low and keep inflation low, but they've set it really high at 2%. You lose 2% of your liquid value every year, minimum. Anyways, how is this going to affect the dollar? Well, other countries don't need our dollars anymore. They do still have them, right? But what they're doing is they're using them less. And they're using them less. And one of the early predictions, this is years ago, folks, 5 to 10 years ago, they were saying when the world stops asking for, treasury bills or treasury bonds, which is dollars, or literal physical dollars, all of those dollars will come home because they'll use them to buy what they get from America. And so we'll be flooded with currency, right? And so we'll have massive inflation. Well, we do have a lot of inflation. Haven't we had that for several years? Yeah. So there's an old saying, if you can't beat them, join them. So will the United States and Europe, will they join BRICS? The answer is fuck no, they're not going to join BRICS. But they just talked about today also how BRICS is going to allow other nations to participate in their system. But in order to do so, you have to back your currency with gold or some other commodity. Some nations will have rice. Other nations will have copper or cobalt, whatever they've got, right? They're going to have to back their money. They're going to have to pony up. You can't sit at a poker table, high stakes poker table with no chips and be betting billions of dollars. You've got to have the chips first. So how is this going to affect the U.S.? How is it going to affect Europe? Well, in order to, join the game, to get a seat at the table, what are they doing? Well, they're making these stable coins, right? The U.S. has its gold, right? They want to sell their bonds to these corporations who then have stabilized coins. What they're trying to do is play a rope-a-dope on the world. And Russia's already said, we're onto this shit. You're not going to have corporations buy your treasury bonds with U.S. dollars and then claim that these coins, these CBDCs, or even if they're not central bank digital currencies, they're private digital currencies. It's not a fucking coin. This is a coin, right? They're talking about an electronic marker or placeholder for a reputed or supposed amount of wealth, whether it's backed by gold and silver or backed by rice or uranium or lead or whatever, right? So, yes, Tether now has, I think, they've got billions and billions. They've been buying gold, and they're also selling off Bitcoin, right? It's not a coin. It is a placeholder for the U.S. dollar, and the U.S. dollar is invisible. It's going poof. We're going to have a moment of crisis. Is that moment going to be an hour, a day, a fucking month? I don't know. What I do know is there's going to be a system change. When this happened in 1933, they shut down the banks. They got their ducks in a row, their plan. They had already had it in, but they got everything instituted. They opened the banks, said, turn in your gold, we'll give you more money. They devalued the gold. We had a new system. We got through World War II. They came up with the Bretton Woods system for international trade. Now, any nation that wants to trade, we're part of that. And if you came later, you had to participate by those rules. So the U.S. is going to have to do something different. You can't just turn on the paper machine, brrr, and spit money all over the place. So we're going to have a financial, economic, monetary reset of some sort. If your money's in the bank in the form of dollar cash, who knows what it's worth or going to be worth. That is going to be worth 1 ounce of silver. Whether you call it a fucking dollar or clams or beads, it don't matter. It's still going to be silver. They can devalue the dollar all they want, inflate it, don't matter. This is always going to be silver. Gold is the same story. I just don't happen to have any here. If I did, woo, that'd be nice. Here we go. This is important. Silver just closed around $58.80. Earlier today, it was $59.90. Right at that $60 mark, they did not want it to touch. $58.80 is the highest ever weekly close for silver, ever. But in M2 money supply adjusted terms, to meet and match where silver was in 2011, it needs to be like $110. To be where this $50 gold silver price was in 1981, when silver hit $50 before they scrapped it and hit everything, said, hey, the emperor's got clothes. Stop that shit. That silver's worth around $180 to $220, depending on what marker you go by. Silver should be a lot higher, but yet it is the highest ever. Gold, 4,227. It was closing in on 4,300. Folks, silver is now up 100% this year. It's doubled. Gold hasn't doubled this year, but it's doubled in the last 2 years. That's how bad our money is going down. Okay. That puts the silver to gold ratio at 71.9 to 1. Okay. The gold to silver ratio coming out of the ground is 7 to 1. The ancient system was 16 to 1. Adjusted to account for the extra cost of handling a lot more silver for gold, it's 20 silver to 1 gold, and that was our monetary system before 1933. Right? 1 silver dollar took 20 of those to make 1 gold piece. And since then, since they screwed the whole system up, they've been trying to hide the fact that the banks have fucked it up, that the governments have fucked it up. They want to keep us quiet, sedated, calm. Don't rebel. Don't cut off their heads. Don't throw the king out, right? So they told us, hey, look at that Potemkin city over there. Everything's great. Here's your new money. Now, folks, in France, oh, they've had it worse. When they fuck up their money system, I'm just going to use France as an example. They screw their money system up. They say, that's it. All of those old francs, which is their dollar, those francs are no good. If you want the new money, you've got to take all your old francs, go to the bank, and exchange them for new francs. Well, hold on a second. You have to prove where you got that money from, that you paid your taxes before they give you new francs. This way, people that had gotten their money, didn't pay taxes, traded off market as in black market. If you couldn't prove that you got it fair and square, if you couldn't prove that you paid your taxes, they would confiscate your francs and you get shit. Frankly, I find that to be fucking terrible. But that's where we're at, folks. They're going to try and fuck us over. And France did that several times, by the way. And one of the greatest examples of a system of currency, paper, failing was the Weimar Republic, Germany, of the 1920s, where ultimately their money was so fucking worthless, they would burn it to keep the house warm. It would literally take a wheelbarrow full of Reichsmarks, which is their dollar, which later became Deutschmarks. Anyways, they'd had their Reichsmarks. It would take a wheelbarrow full to buy a loaf of bread. It was absolutely worthless. So do you want to store paper? Or do you want to have something real? Do you know what the banks are doing? Do you know what corporations need for their high-tech civilization? What are you going to do? Do you see it coming and understand the SHTF implications? Whether it's just discomfort for a week, a month, a couple of years of hard times in America, or whether we get hot spots of serious SHTF and conflict and fighting, or is it going to be ultimate? The country's in a shit show civil war, or maybe global World War III, and a complete realignment of every country and who runs it, owns it, and controls it. The problem with the United States of America in this plan that the rulers of Potemkin City have is America is in possession of about 80% of the world's guns, if not more, 90% by some take. Yeah, we're armed to the fucking teeth, and we've got big mouths with these teeth in it. Right? We'll chew them up and spit them the fuck out. They don't like that. We're the lone wild card on the whole planet, the United States of America, and the people just happen to be the most powerful people on the planet because of that very one solo single fact. We're armed and we got big fucking mouths. And because we're armed, they can't silence us. And because we're not silenced, we can teach each other and share. There's a fucking teacher in England who has just been given a life sentence. What was his crime? He refused to call a transgender fucking fruitcake they, them. The pronouns someone with a mental disorder demanded, the teacher refused to speak words and accept their mental disease, their mental illness. They refused to accept it and play along, so they arrested him again and gave him a life fucking sentence. Tell me the First Amendment isn't important. Tell me that they won't go that far, and I'll tell you you're full of fucking shit. That's exactly what they want to do, is put us in jail, lock us up, silence us, so we can't argue, so we can't tell the truth about our fucking money, so we can't tell the truth about the king having no fucking clothes, and that his Potemkin City he can take and shove up his ass. That's not what we want. We want to be free. We're Americans. Bam. So yeah, silver and gold going up like this. All wars are tied to money, tied to the king's ability to rule and their ability to fool us into believing they're doing a good job. Ooman says, I'm doing my part to help the silver squeeze, but paying over $50 an ounce just feels crazy. Okay. I'm going to tell you guys a little bit. I'll share a little bit about my family. I know holy crap, I'm running out of time. My family owned property on Sutter Creek in California, the gold country, where they discovered the fucking gold. They owned gold property, and in the summers in the early 80s, we would go down and they pan for gold, dredge for gold. It was a family outing. Let's go get some fucking gold. Gold went literally from the time they made gold legal to own again, $35, $33, whatever the hell it was. It went to $860 an ounce in 1981. So in less than 10 years, it went up 25 times in value, 25x, 2,500%. That's a big jump, don't you think? Can you imagine? Let's see. If you said, John, I'm going to give you $35 and I want you to give me $850, I'd tell you you're out of your fucking gourd. I'm not doing that. But that's precisely what Americans could have done. They could have handed over 35 of these and gotten back 10 years later, 850. But here's the trick. Here's how the chart looked. It looked like this. For most of that 10 years, gold barely went up. But at the very end, it did a hockey stick straight up. Exponential growth in the last several months of the growth cycle. That's what happened with silver also. It went from $1 up to 50. And then they crushed it using their Potemkin City money printing machine. They can't do that anymore. You want to know why? Because they have to back their silver stocks they sell, their gold stocks, with actual metal. Why? Can't they just keep trading paper? No, because people that want the gold and want the silver, banks, governments, corporations, and rich people, what are they doing? What are they doing? They're saying, hey, look, COMEX, trading exchanges, precious metals exchanges, we aren't just buying paper. We want the metal. Sell us the fucking metal. We want the gold for our banks. We want the silver for our industry, our high tech, our missile tech, right? Our medicine tech, our fucking solar panels, everything. Batteries. Silver is the most useful metal on the planet. It's the most useful element, period, behind oil. It's the most useful metal on the planet, and it cannot be substituted. Period. Now, big tech knows that. They don't teach us that, do they? No. Look over there. Look at that Potemkin City. That you want to do that. You want a big house that you can pay property tax and have a car that you pay way too much for and fucking live a lavish lifestyle and taxed out your ass. You want that. You don't want to be free. Or do you? Now, Uman's comment there. If we can put that back up, Mr. Uman. I know I'm at the 1 hour mark here. I'm going to try and wrap this up in a way that makes sense. Paying $50 an ounce just feels crazy. Silver is just now starting to go to that point where it's going to turn up and go up in value dollar-wise. If you follow the models, but people go, well, John, it goes up and then it just crashes right back down. No, well, there's one problem with that, saying it's going to do exactly what it did before. And that is that the entire economic, monetary, and financial system of not just the U.S., but the whole world is changing. They don't want paper dollars anymore. So they're not willing to accept paper dollars in exchange for this and paper contracts and crash it. Same with anything of value, uranium, copper, zinc, any of your mined metals, anything of real value, commodities. They're going to go up and stay up, in my opinion. And again, I'm not an economist, right? I wish I had more money to buy more, but I just do not, right? But people are going, man, $50. Well, people actually have now disconnected the silver dollar from their head. We don't have fucking silver dollars in circulation, right? The 1 ounce silver dollar used to be silver. And then they got all the silver out of it, and people still called it a dollar. And then they just took those coins out of circulation. Right? So the idea of 1 ounce of silver for $50, Americans don't even know what the fuck that means anymore. What's the value of this? It's determined by its rarity. It is a precious metal. It's hard to get. It's hard to come by. It's expensive, yes. But would you rather have a pile of paper that they can burn, take its value and cut it in half, tell you that they're just taking it from you, and you've got to use their central bank digital currencies? Yeah, it feels kind of crazy, but only if you understand what money used to be recognized as. Right? I remember going to like a Chuck E. Cheese as a kid, and they had tokens to play their fucking video games. 1 second, I'll get to that, Mr. Uman. Tokens. I'm like, that's not a quarter. It's sized like a quarter, kind of looks like a quarter, but I give you $1 and you give me 4 tokens. And now I have to play them in your machines, your games where you take my money from me. So I take something of value that's mine and you give me some bullshit currency, a Chuck E. Cheese token, but I can only use it if I play your games the way you want me to. And when I leave to go home, I've got nothing. Or you can have something real that they will want and they're going to be willing to buy back, and the value is just going to go up because, oh, by the way, there's a huge fucking shortage on precious metals. Huge. But shh, they're not telling anybody, except they have to print numbers. Those numbers are exposed. You just have to know where to look. There's a huge shortage. The world produces 800 million of these a year, and that's all they can produce. In fact, they're starting to produce less. They have to work harder and dig up more ground to get 1 ounce. It's becoming more rare. What used to be 1 ounce of gold for every 16 ounces of silver found, produced, it is now 1 to 7. It's twice as rare as gold, and the gold numbers are going down too. There's not very much around, and everybody's going to want it. Uman says, FOMO has an odd effect, fear of missing out. When it increases demand, the more expensive it gets. And you combine that with a shortage. So $50 sounds expensive, doesn't it? But it's getting to this point where it's starting to go up, right? Just last year, it was $25. Now it's doubled. If it goes up like it did before, from $1 to $50, that's 5,000%. 50 times. What's 50 times 25? Right? That's $1,250 an ounce. I'm not saying it's going to do that, but if it went up 50 times from where it was last year, that's what it would have to be. Can it go that high? Some people are saying, yeah, it'll take 2-3 years, maybe 5 or 10, who knows? But all it can do is get more rare and more valuable. So it's a way to save your wealth, protect your wealth, keep your wealth from being turned into useless fucking tokens. Because this is what the fighting is all about. In all truth, the gold and the silver is literally what these fucking kings and banks are fighting over. It's what they buy their clothes with. It's how they establish their wealth and their value. And it is what makes their nation strong so they can trade with other nations. This BRICS system is demanding you have commodities to back your currency, to play the game with them. And if the bankers don't want to play real and play fair and play honest with other nations, we're all going to fucking war. Uman says, but, they keep finding hundreds of billions of deposits in Africa and a fucking asteroid that flew by. An ounce in the hand is worth 1 million ounces, 10 million ounces, a trillion gazillion ounces on an asteroid. They're full of shit and they're fucking lying about it. They want you to worry about getting Chuck E. Cheese, central bank digital currency, smart coin, stable coin tokens. The emperor has no clothes. You guys be cool. I love you much. I'll be back Sunday night live right here, 6 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll talk about all the bullshit that's going on, not just gold and silver and not just the king. There's a lot of stuff going on that is telling us what direction we're heading in and how this is all going to play out. Well, in addition to gold and silver, folks, one last message. Copper, lead, brass, and cold blue steel. Chance favors the prepared mind. Those are precious metals too. God bless, Godspeed, Semper Fi, and I'll see you at the zoo on Sunday night.
Ho, 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 ho.